Deep on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea, a diver in a heavy copper helmet moved through the gloom and then froze in horror. Below him, half buried in the sand, lay what looked like a field of dead bodies. Arms, legs, faces scattered across the seabed. He surfaced in a panic, barely able to speak, but he was wrong about what he had seen. Those were not corpses. They were statues, ancient bronze and marble, lost for 2,000 years. And nearby, in that same wreck, lay a corroded lump of metal that would rewrite the history of human invention. Inside that shapeless green lump were gears. Dozens of finely cut gears made by hand more than 2,000 years ago. This is the story of the Antikythera Mechanism. The story begins in the year 1900 with a crew of Greek sponge divers heading home across the sea from their work off the coast of North Africa. As they sailed near a small rocky island called Antikythera between Crete and the Greek mainland, a violent storm rose up and forced them to take shelter in its lee. While they waited for the sea to calm, the divers decided to go down and look for sponges along the rocky bottom near the island. What they found instead was far older and far stranger. One diver descended into the deep water, down past 40 meters into the cold and the dark, and there, on the seabed, he saw the scattered shapes that he thought were a heap of the dead. When he described the bronze arms and the pale marble faces, his captain went down to see for himself. And he came back up holding proof, the corroded bronze arm of an ancient statue. They had found a shipwreck, not a recent wreck, but an ancient one, a cargo ship that had gone down some 2,000 years before, in the age of the Roman Republic. The ship had been carrying treasure, magnificent bronze and marble statues, glassware, jewelry, coins, the luxury goods of the ancient world, all bound for some wealthy buyer when the sea claimed it. Word reached the Greek authorities, and soon an official salvage operation began, backed by the Greek Navy. It became one of the first great underwater archaeological digs in history. But recovering the treasure came at a terrible cost. The divers were working far deeper than was safe, in equipment that could not truly protect them at such depths. They stayed down too long and rose too fast, and their bodies paid the price. One of the divers died, and others were left paralyzed by the crushing effects of the deep. Still, they kept going, and one by one, the wonders of the wreck came to the surface. Beautiful statues, delicate glass, and a mass of encrusted objects fused together by 2,000 years underwater. Among all these dazzling treasures was one object that no one paid much attention to. It was a shapeless lump of corroded bronze and rotten wood, about the size of a large book. Next to the gleaming statues, it looked like nothing at all, just a broken piece of junk hauled up from the seabed. It was set aside, catalogued, and sent to a museum in Athens with the rest. And there it sat, ignored, while scholars marveled over the statues. For a time, the most important object ever pulled from the sea was treated as an afterthought. Then, months later, the lump betrayed its secret. As it sat in the museum, the old waterlogged wood and bronze began to dry out, and the object cracked open. A Greek official, examining the pieces, noticed something impossible in the broken surface. Set into the corroded bronze was a gear wheel, with precise teeth like a piece of clockwork. But this was no clock. Clockwork like this would not be invented in Europe for well over 1,000 years after this object had sunk beneath the waves. And yet, here it was. The discovery made no sense. A machine of interlocking gears had no place in the ancient world, where such technology was not supposed to exist for more than a millennium to come. And so began a mystery that would consume scholars for the entire century that followed. What was this thing? Who had built it? And how could it possibly be so old? At first, no one could say. The object was in ruins, broken into dozens of corroded fragments, its gears fused and hidden inside layers of hardened decay. For decades, the fragments guarded their secret. Researchers argued and guessed, but no one could see inside the lump without destroying it, and so the truth stayed locked in the bronze. Then, as the science of imaging advanced, investigators found a way to look inside without cutting it open. They turned to X-rays and later to powerful three-dimensional scanning. When they peered through the corrosion, they were stunned by what they saw. The lump was packed with a complex system of gears, far more intricate than anyone had dared to imagine. There were more than 30 gears hidden inside, and there had once been even more. They were cut with astonishing precision, arranged in interlocking trains, layered one behind another. This was not a crude tool. It was a genuine machine, engineered with a skill that the modern world had assumed no ancient people could possibly have possessed. And the scans revealed something even more remarkable. Etched across the surfaces of the device were thousands of tiny characters, ancient Greek writing, describing what the machine was for. The inscriptions were, in effect, an instruction manual written into the bronze itself, and as scholars read them, the purpose of the mechanism finally came into view. This was a machine for modeling the heavens, a hand-powered device that could predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets across the sky. On the front, a set of pointers showed the positions of the sun and moon against the background of the stars, and even displayed the changing phases of the moon. Turn a small handle on the side, and the whole cosmos would turn with it. The gears would grind and the pointers would move, running the sky forward or backward in time. On the back, other dials tracked the calendar across the years and could forecast something the ancients watched with awe and dread, the coming of eclipses of the sun and moon. It could even keep track of a 4-year cycle, marking the years of the great games held across the Greek world, including the Olympic Games themselves. In a single object smaller than a modern laptop, an ancient craftsman had captured the rhythm of the heavens and the shape of time and built it out of turning bronze. This is why many now call the Antikythera Mechanism the world's first known computer. Not a computer of electricity and screens, but a mechanical one, an analog machine for calculating the sky. And that is what makes it so deeply unsettling to historians. A device of this sophistication should not have appeared for another 1,000 years or more. Nothing else remotely like it survives from the ancient world. Then, for over 1,000 years afterward, the record goes silent. No comparable machine appears again until medieval Europe. It is as if a single brilliant light flared up in the ancient world, shone for a moment, and then was snuffed out completely, leaving almost no trace behind. Which raises the greatest question of all. Who could have built such a thing? Whose mind and whose hands were capable of this so long ago? The honest answer is that we do not know for certain. The name of the maker was lost with the ship, and no signature survives to tell us who dreamed it up. But there are clues and tantalizing possibilities. Some scholars look to the great thinkers of the ancient Greek world, mathematicians and astronomers whose work hints at machines like this. Ancient writers describe devices that could model the movements of the heavens, built by legendary minds of Greek science. For a long time, those accounts were dismissed as exaggeration. The Antikythera Mechanism proves that such machines were real. Somewhere in the Greek world, in workshops now lost to us, craftsmen truly could build the sky in bronze. And it forces us to wonder how much ancient knowledge we have lost. How many other inventions vanished in fires, in wars, in shipwrecks, leaving no trace at all. If not for a storm and a chance dive, and a lump of metal that happened to crack open in a museum, we would never have known this machine existed. We would have believed it impossible. It is a humbling thought. The ancient world was not as simple as we like to imagine. Hidden in it were minds capable of engineering wonders we did not think they could reach. Today, the fragments of the mechanism rest in a museum in Athens, endlessly studied, still giving up their secrets one scan at a time. Reconstructions have brought its lost gears turning back to life. But the original remains a fragment and a question. We can read its dials and follow its gears, yet we still cannot name the genius who first set them in motion. 2,000 years ago, someone built a machine to hold the heavens in their hand. Then a ship went down, and the knowledge died, and the sea kept it hidden in the dark, until a storm blew a few divers toward a lonely island, and the ancient world revealed a secret it was never meant to keep.